Welcome to the Screaming Blackbird podcast. In this show, we will talk with military officers and professional leaders to explore Air Force careers and engage in leadership dialogue. The Screaming Blackbird podcast is created by the cadets at Air Force ROTC, Detachment 605 at North Carolina A&T State University. The contents of this show are for educational and entertainment purposes only. They do not contain any official information nor opinions of Air Force ROTC or North Carolina A&T State University.
Appreciate you guys. See ya. See ya. Hey, how's it going, Kennedy?
Jackson.
Italia, and Naya. Good to see you all. Welcome, everybody, back to episode 28 of the Screaming Blackbird podcast. As always, I'm your host, Cadet Jackson Willis, and today I'm joined by Cadets Kennedy Barnes, Italia Hinton, and Naya Jones. We are at the Greensboro 4. Can you guys tell us a little bit about that?
Basically, these four gentlemen behind us, they were one of the first leaders in starting a sit-in movement here in North Carolina, where they sat in at a restaurant and basically kind of pushed that civil rights movement here in North Carolina and urged other students on campus and outside of this campus to kind of participate and push for what is deemed right.
Awesome. And as you just said, these are the four gentlemen behind us.
Yes.
And they have a bit of a bigger place in our heart as members of Detachment 605. And why is that?
Because we have one of the generals behind us, Joseph McNeil. He went through the program here at Detachment 605 and commissioned out, and also, graduated from here at A&T, and he's just one of those distinguished visitors that we always have close to our hearts,
Awesome. So he was a cadet, just like us.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific. Well, it's great to see inspiring leaders be recognized for their heroism. Great. Well, for the audience members who do not know you, can you give a brief intro of who you are, where you're from, and what you're doing here? We'll just go down the line.
Hello, everyone. Do I still?
Yeah, you can look at that. Just look at me.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is Kennedy Barnes. I'm majoring in architectural engineering, and I'm minoring in aerospace studies. I'm from the big 910, Fayetteville, North Carolina, the big 26, you already know. And I'm here because I want to commission out the program, and A&T was one of my top choices. And I got accepted here. I was like, let me go ahead.
Great. I am Italia Hinton. I am a health services major here at North Carolina A&T. I'm also a junior from Virginia. I'm in Air Force ROTC, currently serving as the current Delta Commander. My wish in the Air Force once I commission is to become a hospital administrator and hopefully join the Medical Service Corps and just go from there.
So, my name is Naya. I'm Cadet Jones. I am a sophomore transfer student here, so I'm actually a 250 in the program, meaning this was my very first year as a cadet. I'm studying food and nutritional sciences with a concentration in human nutrition here at A&T. And once I commission, I hope to become a dietitian in the Air Force, also serving in the Medical Services Corps.
Nice. For the audience members who watched the previous podcast, we just had Cadet Brown, who's a 250, just like Cadet Jones, and Cadet Johnson, who's a traditional 200, who's also in her class. So if you want, go back, look at those episodes. They have a lot of interesting perspectives, talking about the opportunities that they got, but also what they're going through as 200s, which is exactly what you're going through. Amazing. And we have our resident Cadet Delta Commander in the house, whoop whoop, Cadet Hinton. Is doing an amazing job this semester leading the detachment. Maybe we'll get to some of those questions and see how your experience here at the Beya Conference kind of can apply to that. Great. Well, the reason you guys are here is to show off the amazing opportunity that you guys got. Does somebody want to intro what the Beya Conference is and what it does?
So the Beya Conference is actually an acronym, and it stands for Becoming Everything You Are. And it's a 3-day-long STEM conference, and it's for a super diverse population. There were high school students there, college students there, corporate civilians, and military professionals. So there were people of all different walks of life there. And everyone was on a different path. There were AFROTC cadets. As I already stated, there were service members already there, but there was also a career fair there for people who maybe weren't sure what they wanted to do. So it was pretty much a STEM-based professional development conference.
Amazing. Well, how did you guys hear about this opportunity, and what really made you want to sign up or at least put your hand up to be submitted for it?
So a great thing about our detachment here at North Carolina A&T, our cadre members and any cadets inside of our detachment, we make it a great deal to make sure that all of our cadets are getting as many opportunities that they can get. So our cadre members were the ones to drop information about the Beya Conference inside of our means of communication, Google Chat, and a lot of our cadets were able to read up on it, see what it's about, and see if they were interested in attending. So pretty sure all of us expressed interest once we got to know what it entails, and I'm sure we're all extremely grateful that we actually got the opportunity to go.
Do you know how many cadets applied for it and how many actually got it?
So 3 GMC and 3 POC were selected. Originally, there were 4 slots that were able to be taken, and I believe there were about 10 people who expressed interest. So it was a pretty good acceptance rate. I'm not really sure how the selections were made, but a pretty diverse group of people got to go.
Awesome. So you said 3 GMC, 3 POC. Where's this conference located and how long is it?
So the conference was located in Baltimore, Maryland, and it was a 3-day conference, but because of training and things like that, we only went for 2 days.
Okay. Baltimore, Maryland, 2 days. Did you guys drive or fly?
We drove in the Gov.
The GOV?
Yes.
Up to Maryland?
Yes, it was a very nice experience.
Did a cadre member go with you guys, or was it just y'all?
It was Captain Davis.
Awesome. So Captain Davis and 6 cadets drove up to Maryland?
Yep.
Terrific. So what sort of things did you learn up there? What was on the agenda or the itinerary once you got there?
I could start off first and then I could pass it on, but a lot of the things that I was really looking forward to was specifically, like Cadet Jones said, was the military aspect, especially if I know that this is it's the camera, sorry. It's the, I'll restart.
Yeah.
But just as like a brief overview, what we did was I was focused more on like the military aspect and of course the STEM because of my major. First the military because my desired AFROTC is pilot, and they definitely had a lot of people that I got a lot of mentorship and connections with. Specifically, one that stood out to me was retired Colonel London, and he was the first African-American C-17 pilot, and he really was just making sure that I had everything in for like rated slots, any questions that I had and his experiences, because it was very cool to see a trailblazer and a trendsetter, for the military right there. And he did graduate from A&T as well.
Awesome.
Similar
question, but a little bit different. What were you expecting before you got there? What were you looking to get out of the program?
Really, I was with the knowledge of there being a career fair and all of the people that we would be in attendance and being able to look at the seminars that were being held. I knew that I would get great networking opportunities out of it. So for me personally, since I am a health major and so is Cadet Jones, I know for me personally, I wasn't really expecting to get to leave with an internship or a career opportunity, more for the networking aspect of it. And I will say that we definitely did get that. Even in the first seminar that we attended straight our first day, we were able to meet Colonel Burks, who is part of the Medical Service Corps. She's a hospital administrator, so really what I want to do in the Air Force. So just first day, seeing someone that I want to see myself be in the Air Force, it was already a great start to the conference, and I was able to make that connection with her and have long-lasting mentorship throughout my journey in ROTC and after I commissioned into the Air Force.
Awesome. And similar question, but slightly different, Cadet Jones. What was a misconception that you thought you were expecting to see there and maybe didn't see, or maybe for the better, whatever?
So I will actually sort of have to piggyback off of what Cadet Hinton said, just because we are interested in the medical field. And more so, this STEM conference was geared towards engineers. And so I thought going into it that maybe there would be slightly more opportunities for those of us who were interested in medical services or the medical field as it pertains to human relations versus machinery and creating medical devices. Those opportunities were there for the medical devices, but not so much for the people side of it, I guess. But that also sort of forced us, I think, to talk to other people that we wouldn't normally talk to and explore different opportunities or just go to different sessions. The Beya Conference was set up to where they had this booklet with multiple different sessions within an hour, and you sort of just got to pick and choose where you wanted to land. And so because of that, we were more open to exploring different avenues of interest. So.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's something important to networking as it pertains to the ROTC community and Air Force wide. We talked about that a little bit in the previous podcast with Cadet Johnson when he went to the NCLS conference out at the Air Force Academy. And he talked about all the amazing people he was able to meet and build some of those relationships. And then we talked about transformational relationships versus transactional relationships. Do you guys think you were able to maybe begin or build some of those transformational relationships on this trip?
So, again, to piggyback off of Cadet Hinton, meeting Colonel Burks was a really incredible opportunity because she's actually a group commander for the 86th Medical Group in Ramstein, Germany. So that's just like, wow. And just to see how willing she was to pour into us and really make sure that we had all the resources that we needed to succeed, that was very heartwarming. But also we got to meet cadets from other detachments or military institutions. We met cadets from University of Delaware and VMI. So that was a cool experience that we had as well. We even got to meet some Space Force people. So.
Great. Is there anyone you saw there that you had actually known before from a previous PDT or field training or somebody that was a familiar face on this trip? Or was it all new people?
For me, I actually did run into a few people that I knew in high school and that attend VMI now. So I think that was the cool aspect of it. But mostly we did meet a lot of new people, which I'm also grateful for because I think we built a lot of those connections.
Yeah. And it's not the last time you're going to see these people, right? Like we talk about, we have all these sorts of opportunities with mock deployment exercises and German Armed Forces Proficiency Badge. I keep talking about the previous episode, but it's true, right? Cadet Johnson said he saw Cadet Gould up there, and we saw her at field training, saw her at cadet exchange programs, and you see these people, and you're going to work with these people in the future, so it's important to establish some of those relationships now and see how they develop. Great. Well, as we move on, let's go to the actual event. What were some of the speeches or conferences or things that you guys were able to do while you were up there?
I could kind of start it off with specifically, I sat on a bunch of workshops, of course hitting the career fair. Specifically, of course, my first table was the Air Force table because they had a cool flight sim where we get to play the game, shoot the targets. Met a lot of RPAs specifically and asking about their career fields and things like that because, as you know, I just want to go rated at this point.
Yep.
It don't matter where it's at. So that was good getting that insight. I also talked to the Army as well, just to get some insight from them as well, and specifically just some tips and pointers as well, because it doesn't matter what branch, how to be a good leader, how to make sure that you take care of your people and that you get some of that development so you don't make those mistakes that they wish they wouldn't have made. Mm-hmm. Always making sure we get insight from there. But a couple workshops that I did attend that were very nice were the STEM innovation in STEM one, because we're always in that career field. It's always innovating, and you always have to keep up with the technology changes, with the changes in software, with how methods and the methods that we do things and everything. So that's always good to stay in the loop, and that was very interesting to like sit in on. And also another one that really stuck out with me was diversity, equity, inclusion. Making sure diversity, you never know who's on your team and what they bring to the table. Equity, making sure that the same opportunities are given to everybody, and inclusion, making sure everyone is a part of it, because as soon as someone, a part of your team, doesn't feel like they belong and things like that, they hold back, and that can be a drastic change for your team, and it can be a downfall for them. And also, you just don't want them to feel like that. So.
Exactly.
I think for me, some of the seminars and meetings that really stood out were Space Force seminars, veteran health seminars, and I think the biggest thing that I personally took from it was just seeing how senior enlisted members, black senior enlisted members, how they made the switch from the Air Force into the Space Force, and just seeing their journey and how they've become successful and what they've learned and how they're able to take that and use them as tokens of knowledge to instill in us. Even though we are pursuing the Air Force, Space Force is still a huge part of what we do. And also taking a peek behind the curtain for in the future when we do become veterans and we've served our time. What can we utilize now? Where can we start now to make sure that we are getting the maximum amount of support from the military after we get out? I think those were very insightful.
So 2 sessions that were very beneficial to me were how to upgrade your leadership shadow, and then also this seminar about study habits. And so the first one, I guess I'll start with explaining what a leadership shadow is. So your leadership shadow is the impact that your leadership leaves behind even when you're not there. So what do people think of you? How do they act based on the impact that you have or have had on them? And so one example they gave that stuck with me the most was exemplify what you want to become. And so just a small scale example of that would be if you want to be a bodybuilder or you want to be physically fit, you're not going to do that by just being in your room on Instagram being like, man, I wish I looked like that. It's one of those things where if you want to become something, you need to put in the work and do it. So if you wanted to become a bodybuilder, you would go in the gym and you would put in that work. So for me, if I want to be a better leader, I would need to go to professional development conferences such as this one, and I would need to learn how to network so I could bring different things back to the detachment, different things of that nature. So that was something that stuck with me. And then as far as study habits, I think anyone who's a lifelong learner, it's always helpful to get different study tips. And so one of the main things they were addressing was how to tackle procrastination. One thing I will say that sort of got brought to my mind that I'll share with everyone for study tips that I actually learned outside of this that I sort of thought about while I was there is, as far as procrastination goes, anything that you want to do, think of it as doing a favor for your future self or helping yourself out. If someone came up to me and they asked, hey, can you help me with this, or do you mind if you could do this favor for me? Okay, so one thing that's super helpful when it comes to procrastination is thinking of whatever it is that you're going to do as a favor for your future self. So typically if one of my friends came up to me and asked, hey, can you help me out with this, or hey Jones, do you mind if XYZ, I'm running behind, I would help my friend out because I want to do that favor for them so they could succeed. So if you have a good relationship with yourself, you should think, hey, I want to help myself out in the future so that I already have my bases covered. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's important, and I cannot stress enough the importance of operating with intent, which I think is kind of what you were alluding to, like being intentional with your actions and not saying you want to do one thing but then doing something that's not going to help you. And it's important in everybody's lives, but it's really important in ROTC. I think one of the benefits of ROTC is that you get a balance between college life and ROTC life, but one of the downsides is you only get so much time to train. So you're not around the environment the entire time. So when you're here, we have to use every second efficiently and effectively. And that's something I tried to do with you guys when I was your DO for FTP last semester. With our initial feedbacks, our midterm feedbacks, and our final feedback meetings was, hey, what are your goals for this semester? Academic, ROTC, personal. And then I wrote it down. And then when we revisited in midterm, I was like, hey, what were your goals? And like, what have you done to do this? And was it successful or not? If so, great, keep doing it, teach others. If not, try something new and be intentional, because you're telling me your goals, but you're not actually doing anything to achieve them. And so it kind of helped click with some people, and hopefully it was helpful to operate with intent. But yeah, I agree. Great. Well, let's talk about the impact that this conference had on you guys, and what were some of your biggest takeaways or biggest learning lessons from your trip.
So some key takeaways that I got from this trip was, I really have to think about it. I'm so sorry. Just start with you and I got you.
For me personally, I think the biggest takeaway that I got from this trip, just seeing so many Black military members, period. Seeing myself in others, I think that was my biggest motivation after I came from that conference and coming back to the detachment. And I knew that I was able to see myself in those people, and I knew that I had to take what they gave me and find ways to give it to cadets in our detachment. So any knowledge, any mentorship, any long-lasting words or teachings, anything from those seminars, I knew that it was up to me to make sure that I am instilling it, and I'm making sure that it gets pushed to other people, so that they can also see themselves in other people and see themselves in the Air Force and know that they are capable of being everything that they can be. Just knowing that if these people can do it, that I can do it too. Even though I'm still a student, even though I'm not quite there yet, I have so many resources and so many things that I can do now to prepare myself and give myself the maximum amount of opportunities and experiences, so that when I do get into the Air Force and I do encounter any problems or things of that nature, I will know that I've seen it in other people and they've had these same experiences, and I can take what they learned and kind of incorporate it into my experiences.
So I didn't really touch on my interactions with the Space Force officers much, but they actually impacted me in a way that they gave us practical advice for young officers, because both of the Space Force officers that we talked to were senior enlisted officers, Chief Master Sergeant Scott and Master Sergeant Spears Reeves. One thing that Chief Master Sergeant Scott touched on was how he said that he himself, he is enlisted, and he says he feels like enlisted people are the late bloomers of the Air Force, but that does not mean that they're unintelligent or unworthy of respect. And I think that it was really important to hear him sort of discuss that in depth, because he was specifically talking to us, since we have aspirations of becoming officers in the military. And so for those of you who aren't familiar with ROTC or how the process works, basically when we commission, we'll be going in as officers in charge of pretty much all the enlisted people under us, and so we'll have no experience coming in leading. And so he really wanted to mentor us and help us to understand that our enlisted peers, they they're helpful and they offer advice as well. And he really encouraged us to rely on them and to look at them as assets, look at them as people who have had more experience than us, who can help us, not just people that we're trying to lead. So that was a really great reminder to have, especially since we won't have any experience with that before going into the Air Force.
So basically, some key factors to take away from this conference was representation matters, because if you see that person in that spot, it's easier to aim and it's easier to have a goal, because if you see that person do it, it inspires you to do it. You know, sometimes when you have that actual person, that image that you're trying to emulate, sometimes that's just how it is. And like what Cadet Jones had hit was specifically talking to the enlisted members of the Space Force, was some key takeaways to take away from is that they don't count them out to fight. 9 times out of 10, when we come in as second lieutenants with our just bachelor's degree, our senior NCOs, they probably already have their masters, or 2 or 3 masters, you know, or their doctorate. And you're just sitting there like, a lot of people, I guess the conception is like enlisted aren't intelligent, or enlisted, you know, because they're enlisted, they're lower than us. And in that case, no, I'm not thinking that. Another key takeaway was stick with your senior NCO and NCOs if you can, and let them guide you, because you're just coming into this and they've been in there probably already 10 years plus on you. So
Yeah, these are great lessons to take with you as you go into the Air Force, but they're also lessons that you can apply now, right? You've got 2 POC positions. We've got 1 FTP training, getting ready to go to field training this summer. So what are some of the lessons that you guys were able to turn around and apply immediately to your current roles in ROTC?
So some key things that I did specifically is I'm audio and visual, specifically pulling up the slides for lab, making sure we have everything up visually and audibly throughout the detachment. And also I'm an IMT trainer, so I help with the IMT chief, specifically carry out his orders of the day, objectives, and making sure that we're the ones actually hands-on training with IMT. And some key takeaways that I've gotten from this to actually apply was patience. A lot of things is in precision, so patience and precision.
Okay.
Specifically, as you know, that I've been getting a lot of praise for like how I've been training, and I always just keep in the back of my mind that I want IMT to be at a better place than I was when I was at their stage as IMT, and making sure I'm giving them the resources and also giving them the training to where when they get to FCP that they don't crumble, or don't, I didn't crumble, but they don't, you know, do better than what I did. Because that's the whole point of like being a leader as well, is uplifting the people underneath you to where they perform at their maximum capacity. Yeah. And so that's something that I definitely got from talking to the military personnel of all branches there, because I pretty much talked to everyone, was to uplift as a leader. And it's not always about you. It's what you do for your group, what you do for your people, and how you look out after them.
Sweet.
A big thing that I've already started to put into action as soon as I got back from that conference is putting yourself out there and taking that chance, because if you don't, there's no telling who that opportunity or who that experience will go to. So Cadet Boyd and Cadet Selman, who were also in attendance, Cadet Boyd specifically, he was able to land 2 interviews by putting himself out there and talking to different companies. Even though he knows that he wants to pursue the Air Force, it's still great to get those opportunities and make those connections. He was able to land 2 interviews. And I think a big thing with that is when I got back to the detachment and I was talking to cadets about my experience and how it went, a huge thing that I told them is like, hey, you're here now. You have so many opportunities while you're here that you may not get outside of ROTC. So take advantage of it. You have so many resources. We want you to take advantage of it, especially as POC, and seeing how we want to make sure that we instill in GMC some of the things that we wish we knew, or that we wish we got from our mentors or the POC that were above us while we were GMC. And just letting them know, like, hey, while you're here, you have to make the most of it. And it's sometimes it is up to you to put yourself out there. We teach so many things inside of ROTC that can be applied outside of ROTC, and I think that's one of the greatest things about ROTC and the military period. And then also just letting GMC cadets know, like Cadet Jones, like, share these experiences with others so that next year when the same opportunity arises, more people will be encouraged to put themselves up for it and be able to experience it themselves and build connections themselves.
Yeah, I mean, just in this opportunity, you guys said that a cadet was able to land 2 interviews, develop transformational relationships with all different kinds of branches, and have an impact on your own personal development. And so that's just one of the amazing things about being at Det 605. Continue. So same question to you, Cadet Jones.
So this will go back to the Leadership Shadow Seminar. One thing that they really emphasize for leaders is that you can't pour from an empty cup. And so one thing that I actually chose to prioritize once I got back from Beya was prioritizing myself. Being a 250 is really hard because you have to prove yourself a lot sooner than your peers and those around you, just because you're working towards the same goal but with less time. And so I personally sort of got burnt out from ROTC because I was just going full force all the time, and I love being here and I want to be here, but I realized that I got to a point where I also needed to prioritize myself and my mental health and sort of just speak life into myself and realize that it's okay to, take a break and to not have everything figured out, not to have everything together. And so that was one thing that when I got back, I chose to do. That way I can, now that I am back, be better as a leader and a cadet, because I'm not operating off of a half-charged or barely charged battery. So.
There we go, taking those lessons you've learned and applying it to your training and sharing it with your peers, right? I mean, you all are working together, competing on a national scale to get those EA slots and go to field training, and these are lessons that apply to ROTC, but they also apply to your regular lives, right? I mean, leadership, networking, transformational relationships. This is stuff you can take with you on active duty, but also if you're tired, or share with family members, things like that. And so it's great that you guys are able to go on this conference and gain so much from it. As we wrap up, we want to ask you if there's any takeaways. We've said takeaways 50 times.
One thing we gotta say, Cadet.
Oh wait, her engine is on.
Let's see that. So
Cadet Captain Willis is a great podcast officer.
Cadet Captain Willis is mid.
He's doing so exceptionally well at his job. The podcast has never been like this before, and you guys get to experience this wonderful podcast. What an innovative and creative dude.
One thing that I actually shared in my private time. Okay, you know what? It's actually really good to tell people compliments to their face, because it's good to uplift people. Right, it's good to uplift people. Like, it's one thing to talk positively about people when they're not there, but it's also good to make sure that you're pouring into people's cups as well.
We need to talk.
And so, one thing that I actually spoke to Cadet Hinton about privately was that even in the short amount of time that I've gotten to know you and observe you, one thing that I have learned about you, or just observed, is that whatever you do or whatever you touch, you elevate. Like, you do it to the best of your ability. And I spoke to her privately about that, just having you as a DO, and then also seeing the way that you completely transformed a podcast. Like, that's actually what I was talking to her about. It's like, the podcast, like, it's like everything he touches turns to gold. Like, he actually, like, elevates everything that he does, and I can see that you try really hard with everything that you do, and you put your best foot forward with it. And yeah, so that's one thing I had to say about you. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
It's actually so crazy because, like, it'll be like the most bizarre and like the most creative idea that anyone could ever think of, and either me or like a random person that I'm having the conversation with inside of the detachment is like, oh, Willis could probably put that into action. Like, it's just like a common knowledge. Like, you are a great example of someone that can take anything and just, like she said, just transform it, amplify it. And I think that's so cool. Not many people have that.
And that's another thing is like the Air Force will be glad to have you, because if they don't, like,
stop gassing me up.
Gassing him up, we might as well. Because again, like they said, I'm not gonna piggyback too much off of it, but like that's what the Air Force needs. But basically, again, I'm gonna piggyback off what they said, but like that's what I'm saying. You're the example that we always look, like a lot of people look up to you, and just continue to keep what you're doing what you're doing, because you know.
Thanks, I appreciate that. I attribute a lot of my success to my leadership structure. We got our wing queen right here, and
Delta Queen.
a lot of cadre that give us a lot of freedom to
She said
roam,
Delta
right?
Queen.
With the podcast, they weren't like micromanagement. You got to do this. They just like said, hey, this is what you have to do the podcast. And I had a lot of freedom to operate, and I think I operate well with freedom. And so it was a really good mix of good leadership structure and then also freedom to exercise and take some risks. Great, but let's move on from that.
Yes.
We've got our final question for you guys. Parting shots. Our audience is full of family and friends, other cadets, or high schoolers who are interested in ROTC. So is there any words of wisdom or parting shots that you guys want to leave with them as they move on?
I'm gonna look into the camera for this. No, I'm kidding. So basically, I would say for people who are interested, definitely reach out. That's the whole point of why we're here, and to share our experiences. We're not mean, and we're not gonna shoot you out the door, because we actually find it like more interesting that you're interested about this, that you're thinking about your future, and you're thinking about already what you want to do in your life. And like that's something that I didn't have access to, when I was growing up, especially going through high school, and just seeing how it's elevated to, of course, everything's innovating how we are today, but how high schoolers, you can ask them, they're already knowing what to do, and HSSP scholarships, they're already applying for those things, the academies and things like that, or just knowing what higher educations they want to go to. This I didn't know. So like, just continue to ask questions, be eager, and always shoot for what you want, because again, you never know what you might not get if you never put your foot in the door and try it.
Yeah, the best time to start is now, right? Like you said, don't wait till you get to ROTC to start trying hard. Don't wait till you get on active duty to apply these lessons. Great words of wisdom is like the best time to plant a tree is like 20 years ago. The second best time to plant a tree is right now. So don't wait until you get into a position to lead. Don't wait until whenever to start applying some of these lessons. Do it immediately, and you'll see results.
Parting shots for me. Become everything you are. I think that right there, that's enough to kind of like seal the deal for me. Everyone has potential. Everyone is capable. It's just about becoming everything you are, figuring out what you are and who you are as a leader, what leadership traits you want to take from others, and what leadership traits do you want to see in yourself.
One thing that I will say is if you even have a 2% interest or any interest at all in ROTC, just try it. There is not a binding agreement until you're a contracted cadet, so it's a great experience and opportunity to have regardless of whether or not you actually choose to go down the path of commissioning. It's a great place to make friends, become a better leader, get some discipline in your life, and it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, and I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do this, but then I got here and I fell in love with it, and now I'm changed for the better. So if there's even a 2% chance you're like, I'm probably not gonna like it, I don't want to get up at 5 in the morning, just try it, because you might love it, and then you might get life-changing opportunities like this one. So
Yeah, that's a good point. There's not really one sort of type of person that we're looking for in ROTC. There's people from all over the country. There's all different walks of life, and there's a lot of different characteristic traits that people have, and they're able to be successful in this program. So I want to appreciate you guys for coming on, And that's going to wrap up episode 28 of the Screaming Blackbird podcast. As always, I'm your host, Cadet Jackson Willis, and we're joined by Cadets Kennedy Barnes, Italia Hinton, and Naya Jones. And we will see you. See you.
See you.
We're supposed to do We Are Black.
We are Blackbirds. We are one.
I thought you were going to do the other one.